All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about gifted toddlers, that intense period between ages 1 and 3. And if you're a parent of one of these amazing little humans, you probably know it can feel both completely magical and, let's be real, a little bit overwhelming. If you've ever found yourself thinking, whoa, where did that come from? Well, you are definitely in the right place. Everything just exploded. Does that sound familiar? It's a phrase we hear all the time from parents. You see these little sparks in infancy, right? That laser-focused gaze, maybe hitting some milestones a bit early. And then suddenly, it's like a switch flips, and those sparks erupt into a full-blown wildfire of language, curiosity, and some very, very big emotions. So what's our game plan for making sense of it all? First, we're going to decode the key hallmarks you might be seeing. Then we'll take a look under the hood at their brain to understand why everything is so intense. After that, we'll get super practical with some tools to nurture them. And finally, we'll talk about where to find your people, support right here in South Africa. All right, first things first, let's talk about what you're actually seeing day to day. We're going to break down those specific behaviors that really tend to stand out in gifted toddlers from their first birthday up to age 3. Okay, so the first big one, language leaps. For a lot of parents, this is the sign that makes them go, something is different here. And it's not just about them talking early. It's the incredible complexity of what they're saying. I mean, it's the kind of stuff they come out with. They zoom right past what's that and start asking these deep, layered, almost philosophical questions like, why can't I fly like the bird? You might be hearing full, proper sentences by 18 or 24 months, and they start using sophisticated words like actually or because. Suddenly, their vocabulary just explodes. Next up is that explosive curiosity. We're talking about little detectives who have this relentless, insatiable need to figure out how everything, and I mean everything, works, and they will stop at nothing to get their answers. So what does this actually look like? Well, they're the ones taking the toy truck apart, not to break it, but to see how the wheels turn. They're solving puzzles meant for kids twice their age. Their memory is just, wow. They'll remember where you hid the cookies 3 days ago. And don't even think about doing the same activity twice. They crave new things and get bored really, really fast. And then there's the third hallmark, emotional intensity. These toddlers feel everything with their whole being. The joy is radiant, it's huge, it fills the room when they figure something out. But the flip side is that the frustration is just as massive when their grand plans don't quite match up with what their little hands can do yet. All that intensity funnels into this incredibly powerful drive for independence. You know, the one, me do it, becomes the soundtrack to your life. This isn't just them being difficult. It's a fundamental need to be the master of their own universe, which, as you know, can lead to some truly epic standoffs. Okay, so we've seen the what, the language, the curiosity, the intensity, but now let's get into the why. What is actually going on inside that little brain that's making everything feel like it's in overdrive? This brings us to a really crucial idea. If you take one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this term, asynchronous development. All it means is that different parts of your child are growing at wildly different speeds. Their brain, their intellect is like a race car, but their emotional and physical skills are still, a tricycle. And that's where so much of the struggle comes from. You've got this little person who can talk about dinosaurs like a 4-year-old and figure out complex problems, but then they have a full-blown meltdown with the emotional control of a typical 2-year-old. Can you imagine how frustrating that must be for them? That internal mismatch is a recipe for big feelings. Now, it's also worth gently considering something called twice exceptionality, or 2E. This is simply when giftedness exists alongside something else, like traits of ADHD or features you might see on the autism spectrum. For instance, a toddler who can focus on a single topic for hours on end might be showing both gifted intensity and some early autistic traits. Seeing both sides of the coin helps us respond with understanding, not just frustration. So now we kind of get the what and the why. The big question is, how do we actually help them? How do we parent these incredible, intense little beings? Let's get into a practical toolkit with strategies you can start using today. So here are the 4 pillars we're going to lean on. First, having language-rich conversations. Second, following their lead and feeding that curiosity. Third, and this is a big one, validating those huge emotions. And fourth, finding that sweet spot of stimulation so they're not bored but not overwhelmed either. These are all things you can do. When those emotional storms hit, here's a simple 3-step dance you can do. 1, Name the feeling. Just give them the word for it. You seem so frustrated that tower fell over. 2, acknowledge their reality. I get it, that's really hard. And 3, offer a simple tool. Let's take a big dragon breath, or do you want to go to our cozy corner? You're not fixing the problem. You're building their emotional toolkit for life. Now this right here, this is a parenting power move. Instead of just being a walking encyclopedia for their endless why questions, try this. Give them a thoughtful answer and then turn it right back to them. That's a great question. What do you think? You instantly go from being an answer giver to a thinking partner. You're teaching them how to think. You know, trying to navigate all this can feel pretty lonely sometimes, right? Especially here in South Africa, where resources can feel a bit spread out and giftedness isn't always on everyone's radar early on. But please hear me on this. You are not alone on this journey. Here's the good news. There is a fantastic community hub ready to connect with you. It's called Gifted Children South Africa, or GCSA. They offer real, practical guidance. They connect you with other parents, and they have advocacy tips specifically for our local schools and systems. Their website is an amazing starting point to find your people. Okay, so as we start to wrap up, what's the big takeaway? If we boil it all down, it's really about a shift in perspective, moving away from just trying to manage the chaos and toward actively nurturing the potential. Remember that explosion we started with? It's not a problem that needs to be controlled or fixed. It's a beautiful, messy, incredible sign of a mind on fire with potential. And when you meet that intensity with understanding and joy, you're not just surviving toddlerhood. You are building the foundation for a curious, confident, and resilient human being. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What was that one moment with your toddler, that one question out of the blue, or that thing they figured out that just made you stop in your tracks? What was the moment that truly surprised you? Hold on to that feeling. That's the spark. And your job is just to help it grow.